Hey guys, it's Angel with the Auto Body Edge. I wanted to come in here and shoot a little bit of an introduction just for some context. So in this video, I'm sitting down with Drew and Rick from DV Orlando Collision. We already did a walkthrough of their shop in the previous video. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. It's a walkthrough of their new facility in Orlando. It's incredible. The whole thing's clean, and it's like I said, the biggest and most efficient shop and the coolest shop that I've personally seen. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's a very fun watch. You'll get to see what the whole shop looks like, and Drew does not hold back. So he really pulls back the curtain on building an efficient shop. Go check it out. In this video, this is probably one of my favorite videos that I've worked on so far. I got to ask them how they really got started. I got to get the story from them directly from Drew on how he went from a single operator shop in Orlando to this big multi-location operation, and then ask them both the mindset behind running such a really great operation, dealing with failure, and most importantly, I got to ask them some advice for smaller shop owners, how to step out of that multi-hat role so then you can work on the business rather than working in the business. And lastly, just wanted to give a huge thank you to Rick and Drew again for letting us come in and film the shop and ask them all these questions, and for really just, like I said, not holding back and giving us all this information. So I hope you enjoy. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And without further ado, check out the interview.
All right, Drew. So we saw the shop, we saw everything. It looks incredible. Everything's super built out. We see where we are now. Can you take us back to the beginning? I mean, I know you guys started from a one-man shop around Orlando, correct? How did you go from that to this, and how can shop owners who are in a similar position start to build something that resembles what this is?
Yeah, I mean, the beginning was all, I always had a passion for cars.
Mm,
Worked on a lot of custom projects and things for stereo shops, fiberglass and whatnot. Uh, as I decided to kind of, I guess more of a hobbyist at that time, right? Playing around with those things and doing some intricate stuff with fiberglass castings and silicone molds and things. I got into an accident, ironically.
mm,
And as most consumers would, as I followed the advice of my insurance, and really it wasn't even provided as another option
mm,
to use one of their blue ribbon facilities or their network shops. And long story short, there the outcome of the repairs that I got back were incredibly insufficient.
mm,
I'd taken my vehicle in to a friend of mine that was in the business. Why I didn't go to him in the beginning, I don't know.
mm.
It really just felt natural when the insurer said your rental car will be waiting, and I can drop my keys off, and it just seems so painless,
Famous. Mm,
But when they inspected my car, it was repaired so incredibly inconsistent with the manufacturer's
mm,
requirements that they ended up having to buy the car back from me.
mm.
And that experience emotionally kind of triggered me to go, look, I've got to do I got to do some due diligence and
Yeah.
research, and I think there's an opportunity in the market to build a facility that is everything that I wish I had had
Mm,
representing me at that time. We hit the ground running, and um, I remember going up and down, Colonial Drive here in
yeah.
Orlando, and just hitting all the dealerships and any of the buy here, pay here's, and offering to either just try to find what value they were missing out on
Yeah.
and what they thought they needed, and trying to fill the void.
Nice. Awesome. So, I mean, one of the things that I've taken from this experience is your ability to let the business run itself, right? And the business isn't running you, you're running the business, right? Um, a lot of these shop owners, I mean, they're running around doing all these different things. They have multiple hats, and a lot of them come from they were technicians, and they're now shop owners, so they're technicians first. What's the mindset behind like growing out of that technician role and coming into the role as a business owner? Like, could you give us more context there?
Yeah, so that happened. That was a transition that happened a long time ago for us, but
Mm,
I can remember it as if it was yesterday.
yeah.
Um, the majority of owners in this industry are technicians.
Yep.
Naturally, technicians are individuals that are fixers.
Hmm.
Give them a problem, and they're going to excel.
Yeah.
Um, well, that doesn't make a good business owner.
Mm,
And really, first realizing that and being aware of that
mm,
is really the first step, in my opinion. Once you go, okay, because in the beginning, just like anybody else, I would think, regardless how process influenced I was, or operational exposure, whatever it was, there wasn't anybody in the operation that could do the job as good as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there wasn't a time in the business that was true, but really when I began to kind of step back and look, and you spoke earlier about the org chart,
Yep.
that's where it started. We took an org chart and
Yeah.
said, it was actually with a coach from the Automotive Training Institute.
Okay.
And he said, what do you want this company to look like?
Mm.
Where are the positions? And just wrote a bunch of those positions out. I think we should have somebody that's customer service only. I think we should have a store manager. I'd like to have a general manager eventually. I don't know what the details are, but this is the capacity of what I want it to look like. And then I wrote my name into every area in which I was filling. Well, naturally, my name multiplied over and over again. And then he asked me to distribute the time that I was spending on each of those individual positions.
Mm.
And I think we stopped when I got to 160%, right?
Mm.
And you started to realize, realistically, if I am trying to fill the roles of all these different individuals, there's only so much percent of my day that I can allocate to it.
Yeah.
And it was actually in the interest of the company to bring on another individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the transition where you can't just, my financial advisor, he has a great narrative with this, and I like to kind of follow it. He says, it's like hugging a cactus.
Yeah.
So if you go and you've had the realization to say, I'm not the jack of all, I can't do the entire business myself, and I need to kind of learn to delegate and or eliminate some things within my day. You can either hire an individual that's qualified, that claims to be a general manager, right? But every time that I have ever done that personally, it's always been a short path because they never truly buy into your internal policies, procedures, and standards.
They want to put their own.
They've got influence of what worked for them in the past, and that's what they want to work to get done. When you take the term of hugging a cactus, right? And our entire team, leadership down, knows this, right? So if we're going to bring somebody in, we're not going to hire them on skill. They're going to be strongly tested on a personality level, and we're going to identify who they are instinctively, right? And identify the things and how they respond to conflict, how they respond to criticism, how they do in a negotiation. Some people clam up, and some people they blossom, right? How are they gonna, how empathetic are they? Do they take things personally? And as we go through these personalities, we then will identify a personality that we know will be great for XYZ position. And we'll hire the trait and the person, right? And then we plan to hug that cactus. We know it's going to suck for a little while. It's going to be spiny. It's going to hurt. But we get through a year together, right? Everything that we've studied is going to support their efficiency in getting them on board. Their competency to the position, all those gaps we fill, and then we end up with a team member that inevitably becomes a part of the team.
Yeah.
Rather than not having to hug the cactus initially and ending up with a team member that is just there for a shirt torn paycheck, right?
So you think it's much better to bring someone in who has the those attributes who you think could blossom into someone rather than bringing on someone with the experience. Is that what happened with Rick? Is that how you brought him on and you kind of trained him up to being in this second position?
Yeah. So, that's a great question. I don't believe that we hired Rick off of the personality. I don't think that we were quite there yet when the time that Rick came on. I think that, Rick kind of came to us, right? And maybe you might have some additional insight, but a good friend of mine in the business was at training and attended. He was attending a training in Ohio, I believe, right?
Right. Yes.
And he bumped into Rick, and I remember one of the things he told me was, while he called me and said, "Look, Drew, this isn't Rick, this is my buddy, right?" He says, I don't know much about this guy." He goes, "But I know you're looking for a guy, and this guy's here on training with me, and while everybody else is going to the bar and drinking and partying and having a good time, he was sitting down and studying the workbook from the day, right? He wanted to find a closest store to go and grab something for his children, right? That feedback got to me, and conversation started, and Next thing you know, you were on a puddle jumper and making your way, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No, that's basically in a nutshell. That's how
Yeah.
it played out. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And how important is it to have somebody on your team? So, I mean, can we clarify what Rick does for the company?
Yeah. So Rick is my second in command, and essentially he started as a structural technician.
Yeah.
Transitioned to body technician,
Mhm.
transitioned to painter,
Painter.
right? And really muscled through he had a strong technical skill, and muscled through he traded his time, right, to for what we needed, right? Our inefficiencies, our lack of polished processes as we were trying to develop it, created circumstances that said the only way we were going to be able to execute is we had to put in exorbitant amounts of time. So I remember there was many nights at 2 or 3 in the morning when he was painting cars.
Yeah.
And that's totally not the right thing to be doing. But at the time, we did what we had to do.
Yeah.
And the majority of the processes and or standards that we have today started with, when I talk to shop owners, the number one thing that they all have in common, specifically to processes, is they don't know where to start. And I can tell them this works for me and that works for me, and this one guy gave me this and whatever, but they just go, Drew, it all sounds great, and I really want to try it at my store, but I just don't know where to start. And the advice that I can give is because we went through that exact scenario, and ultimately, I forget who it even was, but they just said start. And we took a piece of computer paper and we duct taped it to the wall, and we took a Sharpie, and we said, let's write out every step. And we wrote out every step. And the second that we got to a point where we said, okay, there's enough steps there, we would bring a different technician over that was ignorant to the steps that were there and say, try to execute the repair by following these steps. And if they didn't execute to the standard that we wanted, what did we do? We tore it off the wall. We put a new piece of paper up, and we said, rewrite the steps. So really just, it wasn't a definitive area that says this needs most of our attention. It was just jumping, starting, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, one of the quotes that resonated with me early in my career was do something even if it's the wrong thing, right? Just do something. Just get started. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like that's what got us started here.
Get it rolling, and most of the stuff that Rick is doing today, it's been a lot of tears shed between there and now. He's definitely, I try to keep myself and really everybody around me as vulnerable as possible. I want you to be uncomfortable. I want you in an environment where you're constantly, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. And most of it is mentorship, leadership to the team members. He's working directly with all of our dealer partners. And there's meetings, the majority of meetings that Rick has today, I personally never considered not being involved in many of those meetings. And, I remember being at a couple of those tables and we would look at each other early on and go, man, this is a man's table right here, and the guys that we're meeting with have multiple assistants, very, very intimidating. And I think the constant exposure to that has created a situation that doesn't matter which room you're walking into, you're prepared, right?
Yeah. One thing I would love to know from you guys is like, what drives you on the day to day? Like, what is it personally that drives you to come to work, wake up early? I think I heard you show up early, like 5 in the morning, right, to the shop sometimes. Still to this day, what drives you guys?
So my 5 a.m.s have got nothing on Rick's.
Yeah.
What time you get here, Rick?
Oh man, I would do 4:30.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like whatever. Like go back to the conversation. Whatever is required
Yeah.
to get it done. It may not be the healthiest thing, for us healthy to be there, and also family wise, but sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
We look at the big picture, and Drew's a vision guy, so he has a vision. When we look at that vision, and we're gonna execute.
Okay.
Simple as it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Could you guys tell me what was a failure? One failure in maybe bringing up DB Orlando Collision. Like, was there? I mean, it's easy to look around and be like, "Wow, we have all this space now, and everything's great." But was there one time that you had a failure, and how did you guys both work through that failure to keep going, even and keep your head up, I guess, and pursue?
So I have one on a personal level. I don't know if you have one for the business side.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead. What you got?
Well, I would say failure it's that the right word or it's challenge,
Mm.
right? It's there every day. There's some moments when we have some plans and we try to execute it and it fail, and that's why we will get mentorship to help us out there.
Yeah, we use it as an opportunity to learn, and that's not just cliche. That's exactly how we live. I mean,
Yeah.
this morning, my 9-year-old, we got out of bed, and he was coming here with me today. I've got several saltwater fish tanks, and
Mm.
a fish tank that I have in my bedroom. We recently lost all of the coral that was in it,
Mm.
and now it's rehabilitating, and the water's coming back and everything. But there's a process. And he stands in front of it this morning. We're getting ready, and he goes, "Dad, I can't believe we lost all that coral, man. I can't believe that tank failed." And that's exactly what I told him. I looked at him and I said, "The tank didn't fail, man. We just learned a little bit more than we didn't know before."
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of stops and and then goes off, right? But it's just it's natural now. We because failing is every day.
Yeah.
On a personal level, for me, biggest, and I don't think I'll ever, because it's such a pivotal point for me, was about 5 years in.
Mm.
I got wrapped up in, I don't know whether it's the gloss or the status of financial elevation or whatever. And through lots of therapy, I identified that I was chasing money.
Mm.
And I had a bank account full of money and dream cars and dream homes and all these things. And I never felt more empty.
Mm.
And it was a tough time. So once I kind of got through, identify what my core purpose was, and re-engage myself on the people and really what I truly enjoyed. The cars after a while are just the widgets,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
When Rick came with us, it was his children didn't even have air conditioning
Wow.
in school,
Yeah.
right? And I always talk. Now he's got multiple rental properties and drove his Range Rover here today.
Mm-hmm.
Those things don't define somebody.
Yeah.
But for me, the stories behind that kind of stuff is really what I go, yeah, that feels good, And to know that that's not even the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
For one, he's not going to sit here and go, man, I made it.
Yeah.
We got a long ways to go in our minds, right?
Yeah. So that's I think that's a key part, right?
Yeah.
Not resting on your laurels, or that's good to know. One of the last things I want to ask you guys is, how do you deal with negativity, just in general? Maybe it's maybe it's a negative team member or negativity in the industry as a whole. I know that's a huge thing. I talk to body shop owners all day, and I'll talk to someone who says, that this may work in your market, but not in mine, and they kind of have that negativity. And how do you push through that? I mean, we're dealing with insurance, we're dealing with customers, we're dealing with all these different negative forces. Like, how do you guys push through that and stay positive and aspire to a level like this?
Great question. I think it's all about being as reasonable and rational as possible. And, different answers. So internally to team members, it's giving them no different than the detailer having the washer fluid filler. Everybody on the team has access to a list. That is their list. It's digitally recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And the list is designed to work in one fashion. We show them a diagram on onboarding that basically says, cognitively, your brain divided into two sections.
Mm-hmm.
The right side being relatively irrational, emotional, biased. It's the one that makes you just want to yell. Whereas the left side of your brain, right? And there's far more to the brain, but just from a simplistic detailer level, right? Any folk within the operation can engage with. The left side being far more analytical. Let's sit down. Let's think this through. Let's walk through it.
Mm-hmm.
We coach them to any frustration, any feedback, whatever you have associated with your particular day that is driving you crazy or something that you need to be heard on. We want you to just dump it on this list and have the confidence to know that the business is going to give you a session to sit down with a member of leadership once a week and be able to reflect on that list. And in many cases, when we do that, we go down that list, and it's a lot of, hey, listen, man, I was just emotional that day. It's no big deal. Let's just move on to the next one. But the list served its purpose because it allowed them to not take themselves off their pony and ruin the rest of their day, right? It really allowed them to constructively go, that's going to be heard. Let me just focus on the next thing at hand. And they're able to get back onto productivity, right? When it comes to other shops, I think the association is a good example of that. as I was speaking to you a little earlier, I bluntly approach that with, um, call it like it is,
Yeah.
right? If you're concerned with what an association is going to do and what your involvement, um, what ripple effect it may or may not have,
Yeah.
it's a put up or shut up for me, right? If you think that it's not going to be valuable content, if you think that rallying with other peers and sharing experiences isn't going to help your overall operation, then I challenge you to just come stand in the room and then tell me that after you attend an event.
Yeah.
And naturally, that has seemed to work for me as well. So it's more of a prove it kind of mentality I kind of take on the negativity side. When it comes to the industry, I think from the adjusters internally, externally, um, I think that there's a narrative that is fed to representees of insurance companies that is somewhat strategic, and it's I call it being strategically naive to what it is that they're not doing or not paying for, um, and that's when I use the term rational. Right? There's been I can't think of a major insurer, right, that hasn't had their supers already in this office sitting with us
Yeah.
and just discussing market expectations, which direction it's going to go, and really making sure that the lines of communication are there to where we know we've both got a mutual customer that we both want to have a positive experience. So why not work together, and why allow the butting heads?
I think
Communicate.
that's a huge skill. Like kind of, especially when an adjuster comes and kind of like lowering that guard that they have up, right? That's a big skill for sure. I think, man, I think we I'm trying to. There's one thing I wanted to ask. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll cut this part.
You're
But
good.
can you guys tell us a little bit more about the Florida Auto Body Association? Right. Like I think shop owners could take a ton from that. When it was established last year, correct? Could you tell us more about what you guys do and how it could be helpful for shop owners to join?
Yeah, absolutely. So the association, we've always had a core network of people that have always been the difference makers on our side.
Yeah.
Right? When it came to legislative stuff, consumer experience stuff, whatever it was, we had a kind of a circle of secret weapons, if you will, right? Folks that would just step up and really help us through. And trying to get the association kind of flowing again, it was always met with, well, what are you really going to accomplish? It's just going to be an opportunity for vendors to sell things. And I said very clearly in the beginning that if it had our involvement, then that wasn't going to be the case. We wanted to be really protective of that. And it's been nothing but the opposite,
Yeah.
right, of that perspective the entire time. Our last event was my personal life mentor and coach gave a 8-hour seminar, right?
Okay, yeah.
And all of the market leaders were in the room and they were jaw dropped.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with driving any narrative to a DRP or it didn't matter the nature or business model that you were operating within. If you were in the market, right? And I think that you were influenced positively, right? But I think legislatively, there's the good folk that you're talking about that are in this business. They just simply don't know what's going on and how things impact them. I don't know if you know this, but in 2023, there was a major tort law refinement, and it was primarily focused on like property damage, roofers, that kind of thing, that where they were abusing assignment of benefits and AOBs.
Yeah.
Well, they made that change in 23, and it significantly changed our market from a really accountability on the insurer.
Yep.
It removed it. And since then, it kind of became the wild, wild west. And the insurers just said, we're not going to pay for that. Well, shop owners were reactive to that because they didn't know that was coming into play. Well, since then, the effort for the insurers to continually propose and pass bills that are in the opposite of consumers' interest hasn't stopped. And what FABA has been able to do is we've got attorneys on and that are researching proposed bills prior to getting them into office.
Wow.
And really proposing a side of a different narrative to say, hey, listen, here is the negative aspects associated with this, and this is how it will negatively impact consumers, and getting those bills washed. Because what we found is it's a lot easier to eliminate proposed bills than try to change one
Yeah.
that has already been approved. So the more of those like-minded people, independent owners, DRPs that are, whatever, we can get in the room around that association, the more leverage that we will have in being able to drive
Nice.
standards that are in the interest, change for the industry, especially for at least our state.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible. I mean, it's more than just, being a vessel for vendors to come in and sell, right? So, that's really great to know. The last thing I'll ask you guys, this is at the end. So we do marketing for shops. I wanted to ask about your guys' marketing. When I look up collision repair near me, auto body shop near me, DB comes up, west and east. It comes up first, second, and third. The first and second are both the sponsored results, and the third is the organic. So, I mean, what's going on there? Like, what are you guys doing in terms of marketing? And are there any tips that you could provide for out of the box marketing thinking, or advertisements that work, or anything like that?
Yeah, I would be the really only advice, because I think that we're always a work in progress, that's a constantly moving target.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with just Google, it's like the algorithms and things that they are approving and really rewarding in a way, right?
Always changing.
Is one thing, and then once you drive that, it's the opposite in 6 months.
Mhm.
Well, the only real consistency that we found is not having a jack of all. When we had a single marketing company, right?
Yep.
Versus somewhat of a group of professionals, is really when we started to see traction, right?
Yep.
So having not necessarily a guy that only handles our Google ads or a guy that handles our website, but a cohesive team, right? That everybody understands everybody's role specific to marketing.
Got it.
And then we're able to kind of, if we look back at the operation, if I was spread, right,
Yeah.
the busier an independent, right, marketing team gets, right, the more thin the level of service gets. And I would be, I personally, whether you should be or not, I'll just give you it from me. I am very sensitive to AI right now. I've watched a lot of our service providers. We've got folks that are independent to just social. The level of service that we were paying for has increased in price, and the quality of the content that we're being provided is obviously written by AI rather than authentic, right? And if you look at it from an engagement perspective, it's significantly less engaging than it was when a human was writing. I'm not saying there's not a place for AI. I think it's a valuable resource, and leveraged and used in the right form could be, it's going to be an asset in some degree. But it's also, something that we need to create awareness around, because in the wrong hands could drive the opposite on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, especially with content online. I mean, if it's all getting repurposed by AI, it's going nowhere. That's the reason why another thing I wanted to have this conversation about marketing at the end, is because everything in the front is important. This whole thing, the operation, is so important, because if we're running really good marketing to an establishment that doesn't have these customer service aspects in place, it's just like you're going nowhere fast, right? You're putting lipstick on a pig. You're kind of wasting money in your marketing budget. So this is exactly why I wanted to sit down with you guys and kind of get that insight into the customer experience, the setup with everything downstairs, because if you, like, I've seen it firsthand, if you run marketing to a shop that doesn't have that in place, then it's, again, you're going nowhere fast. So but this has been incredible, guys. I think I really appreciate both of your times. I mean, you guys are running an amazing operation here. And is there anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off?
No, I appreciate the time and the respect that you showed us today, and really the attention to be able to go through, and your research that you did prior to even coming in. I think it makes for a more engaging conversation. So I couldn't be happier with how everything came out today. How about you, Rick?
Yeah, that's exactly.
You got a little camera time today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, man, Angel, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being here. Well, that's a wrap.
Cut.
Yeah, cut.